Is that a trick question? This man was a bona fide scrub. Bona fide scrub.
This dude, I believe he's a bona fide superstar right now.
Right. Oh, well, of course, it's all about winning, baby.
Yeah.
Welcome back to another episode of the Star and Scrub NBA podcast. We're smashing these out. This is like my third one in like 5 nights. But I've got Lee back on. He's back in very summerish looking Melbourne there. It's looking quite nice compared to me freezing my ass off down here in Tassie.
Well, we're both Tasmanian veterans, been there for a while, but this has been one of the coldest winters, so very happy to be back in Melbourne, mate. But as I said, always happy to be here. A lot to discuss. It's only been a week since we started this whole new Star and Scrub, but I guess that's the beautiful thing about being NBA fans.
That's true. We got free agency starting in the next basically 36 hours. So we thought we'd better jump on and do another one, basically a free agency episode, going through all the big names who may be switching teams in the upcoming next 7 days, basically. But before we do, I just wanted to jump in and ask you a couple of things. So I did a little draft / Russell Westbrook trade episode on Friday night immediately after that happened. We've had a few days, I guess, to dissect and listen to a few other things about the what has happened in that space. Just wanted to quickly, firstly, we'll start with the Westbrook trade. What were your immediate reactions and what are your thoughts now, I guess, on that Russell Westbrook move?
Well, I really appreciate Rob Pelinka and the NBA listening to our podcast because we discussed each team's going for broke, and I think the fact that they know LeBron's got a limited time, and Anthony Davis, who knows what his future is. So I absolutely love the fact they're going for broke. The fit obviously is difficult to look at on paper, but I mean, who would know that better than the Lakers themselves? So you can imagine they only have like 4 or 5 guaranteed roster spots, so people on contracts for next year. So they'll fill out that roster, but I think it's going to be a great experiment, and I'm a big fan of it. I love it.
Yeah, I think what I didn't probably include in the second episode, or the last episode that I did on Friday night, is the actual trade itself. I think is pretty good for the Lakers. The fact you're giving up 3 role players, really, in KCP and Kuzma and Harrell for, is he a superstar? Well, he has been. He's probably not. I mentioned it on Friday night. He's probably not the guy he once was, but he's still a very, very good player in the league. So I think the trade in itself was a pretty good deal for the Lakers. It's just about the fit of Russell Westbrook, a non-shooter, against LeBron James, who likes to be the primary ball handler, and Anthony Davis, who doesn't want to play the center position, is my worry. But yeah, any other thoughts, I guess, in terms of that fit?
I think that will be okay. I can see why they would do such a thing. Obviously, they need to swing home run for something like this. They obviously They realise LeBron doesn't want as much responsibility as he's had in the past, and Davis is. So I think it's going to play out very well. I'm very excited for it, as being a big LeBron fan, as you know.
Yeah, and it's going to be super interesting to see how that roster fills out in this upcoming free agency period. Just quickly on the draft, did you have any winners and losers? Anything that stood out for you? Maybe apart from Josh Giddey, who went pick 6 amazingly to the Thunder. Was that a surprise to you? I'd imagine it was, given it was a surprise to most people.
You just had to look on social media to see how big of a surprise it was for the NBA world. Absolutely fantastic. Who knows? He must have had a great workout with OKC or something, but I was not expecting that. When Jalen Suggs didn't go number 4, that's when I thought, okay, this draft might be a little bit different to the other ones in the past. But it's a great draft, deep draft as well, and I love it.
Well, just quickly, obviously I had the Jalen Suggs pick 5 bet that got
This
up.
is true.
Can we just have a word from you on your little Kai Jones top 10 prediction, and that was really nowhere near at the end of the day?
That couldn't look any worse, I think. He went 19th or something. Yeah, happy for him to go to Charlotte, by the way. I think that could it's going to work well with Melo Ball, but I think, that wasn't the great start for the punt of the pod as my as a series. With 19, I said top 10.
The bad thing for you was that I don't think anyone was following you, because you said jump on at 375, and within about 12 hours you was out to about 460. So they definitely didn't listen to you, that's for sure. And I guess at the end of the day, they'd all the punters out there would be glad if they didn't. And again, congratulations to the couple of people I know of that jumped on my bet. Thank you very much for coming. But anyway, let's get into this free agency period. What we're going to do is go through the biggest names here, about 10 or so of the big names, and then maybe 5 ones that are a bit lesser known, I guess, not as important. But what we're going to do is we're going to go through these 10 players, and we're going to take in turns of giving a roundabout number of what we think these players should earn in terms of their annual salary for next season and going forward, I guess, as well. And then the other will respond with whether that's overs or unders. Now, just important to note that this is what we, if we were a GM, would pay these players. This is not what we think they will get, because that's two completely separate things. Now, Lee, do you want to start us off?
I will be very happy to. The number one player on the board is a bloke that we know very little about, Kawhi Leonard. He has a player option. He's 30 years old. And as usual, we know nothing about him, even his injury. I have to tip my hat to whoever who does his, media stuff. Media stuff, because we know nothing. For the world we live in with social media, we know absolutely nothing. And I think Kawhi Leonard, my prediction will be the 5-year 200. I think they pull the trigger on that huge contract there. At his best, Kawhi Leonard knocks on the 5 best players in the NBA, in the world. He probably not the defender he once was, but he can score some buckets very easily. He's an NBA champion, and that 45 he had against Dallas, I think, that's him at his best. So who knows whether he's going to be here for next season at all, but I think, the Clippers, you did all of this for him, so may as well keep that train going. Do you see otherwise?
This is a super fascinating one, because it's... I don't know if on the Clippers, if I want to pay that much money on a 5-year contract that's going to be well over $200 million to a guy who can kind of go walkabout, and you just don't have that communication with him. It's so difficult. But I'm probably with you that you have to do it. Now, he has got a player option. He can opt out. He can re-sign that max 5-year contract. Important to note that if he does want to go to another team, he can only sign a 4-year contract. So, I think if I'm Kawhi Leonard and I'm the Kawhi Leonard camp, and you've got this injury issue, which is probably going to put him out for the majority of next season, and I'm of the belief, given it's Kawhi Leonard, who historically has been very cautious with coming back from injuries, I actually think I wouldn't be surprised if he's out all the next season. That would probably be my belief at this stage. So if I'm Kawhi Leonard, I've got that injury issue. You want the money in the bank, don't you? So you just go to the Clippers and say, hey, I want a 5-year max, and if you don't give it to me, well, I'm going to opt out and maybe sign a 4-year max elsewhere.
Well, I think the Clippers just quite literally just sign the check. I mean, I think you've got your coach. I think Paul George did enough to show that he can be a number 2. Reggie Jackson is at least stability at the point guard position. And
if they can re-sign him, I guess
there is that. But I think, there's enough. You could say first year we melted down, a new team, we'll call it. Last year didn't have Kawhi. I reckon you can, as a Clippers fan, you can say at our best, we can challenge with the best of them and make a title run. So I think he says, give me 200, they sign the check, and that's the end of the day.
I tend to agree, but at the end of the day, how are they going to get better? Is my question mark. Yes, they can re-sign Kawhi. Yes, they've still got PG. I guess they're just banking on those two blokes carrying them to an NBA championship, hopefully, and that's going to probably be the year after next, given Kawhi's injury. So, super interesting to see what happens there. First player on the board for me, Chris Paul, is got the option to opt out of his contract and either re-sign with the Suns or actually go elsewhere as an unrestricted free agent. I think he will opt out to try and get more money over a longer term, given how good he's been for Phoenix this season, and of course with Oklahoma last season. I think 30 mil. I think 30 mil is the number, but with Chris Paul, it's more about how many years you're actually willing to give him. And from all reports, it seems like he and the Suns are on track to stay together, and it looks like a potentially $30 million for 3 years, so a $90 million contract. Is that overs or unders for Chris Paul?
That is the contract he should and deserves.
That's about right.
That's exactly right, in my opinion.
Are you not worried about paying a 39-year-old Chris Paul $30 million? Is that a worry for you?
I am signing that contract as the GM of the Phoenix Suns for just what the intangibles. Obviously, there's the ability to run the offense, and he was first team All NBA. You have to keep in mind, but he skyrocketed what the Phoenix Suns were doing last year, and Devin Booker has added this pick and roll type of play to his game. He's a better passer. DeAndre Ayton at times looked throughout the Western playoffs. And if you're a young player performing in the Western playoffs in your first playoffs, that's amazing. Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson look like completely new players. And I think he's just going to, they've obviously they had a deep playoff run. That's going to be incredible for their experience. And I just see them. And I think towards the end of as he starts slowing down, I guess, Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton will be sort of rising from there. Rising,
Yeah.
pun intended.
Lovely.
Pun intended. And he's an incredible mind to have on the court. So I pay that quite happily, actually.
Yeah, I think from even just an optics point of view, you've got to look at it. I think it would be terrible to lose him because you just got to look at it from the point of, hey, we've been shithouse for 15 years. This guy comes along, all of a sudden we just catapult to the NBA Finals. Like, that'd be a bad look if this bloke just comes along, catapults him to the NBA Finals, and then you just let him leave in free agency. I think that would be... I mean, he could just leave without... It's obviously not up to them. He's not a restricted free agent, but yeah, I think they need to... Whatever Chris Paul wants, they've probably got to put it to him and say, yep, here's the contract, and we just hope that we can bring a championship in probably next season, because by that second and third year of that contract, it might look a bit risque, I guess.
Well, those places, Mikal Bridges, DeAndre Ayton, they'll want their money around that second season. I think they're free agents end of next year, so restricted. So they'll need their money.
Yeah, I mean this payroll for the Suns is going to get very high when you've got Booker, you've got Paul, you got an Ayton who's going to be eligible for probably a max extension. Well, he'll get a lot of money. Whatever he's going to get a lot of money. DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges, the same thing. Cam Johnson, like. This is the issue. All these young guys have performed well, and they didn't get the end result in the NBA championship, and now, hey, you're going to have to still pay them. So we'll wait and see what happens there. Who else is on your list? DeMar
DeRozan is the next player on my list. Unrestricted free agent, 31 years of age, and I still think he's a high-end NBA starter these days. Maybe just a tad under All-Star. I don't know whether he can't shoot threes or doesn't shoot threes, but
interesting one, isn't it? Yeah.
What do you reckon? He can or won't?
Won't.
I
just don't know. I just don't understand how you can take a deep mid-range and he knocks him down, and then he just refuses. There's a line there, and he's like, nah, I won't go behind that.
Well, he shoots like 50% from the field.
Oh, so he's one of the top 5 mid-range shooters in the league, really. That's what he's made his name on.
It's weird it's a weird thing to say, but he's in the middle of his prime, and he actually averaged a career high 7 assists last year, which I found out, which is actually quite extraordinary. Still 22 points a night, 50% from the field, as I said. I think they're number 2 numbers, and I think he can get $25 million again in this free agency to go, and my actually hope is to go to the Dallas Mavericks to be Luka's number 2. To $25 million, I'd be looking at how overs, unders, just right.
Just right, in terms of I think a team would pay that. I think that's probably more than he necessarily needs in terms of I think he could actually accept. I think he's been vocal on saying he'll accept unders to go to a championship level team. And even with the Westbrook trade, there is still murmurs that DeMar DeRozan could be willing to sign a very, very low contract.
Very, very, very low contract.
To go to the Lakers, which would be absolutely extraordinary because not only does that have Westbrook, DeRozan, James, and AD, which sounds great on paper, but then that's just another non-3-point shooter into that mix. So as good as those 4 names are, what's the fit like? I don't know, but that would be quite incredible. But I think one team would give him, there'd be a team out there giving him 25 mil, no worries. But I just think, if a good team that's in championship contention comes along and says, hey, here's 15 mil, he would probably take it. I think he's obviously never really been. I think he might have been to the conference finals with the Raptors, but that's as far as he's been. So yeah, he's searching for a championship, and I think he's willing. He's been vocal on being willing to take less to try and win a championship. I like your fit with the Mavericks, so I think that would work next to Luka Doncic. I don't know. Are they keeping Porzingis in that scenario?
I don't know how they're going to play that Paul Zingers thing, but I reckon DeRozan's a perfect number 2 for him. He obviously gives him the floor spacing. They've got the Hardaway Juniors of the world who can shoot, and I think DeMar DeRozan, I think he's a great person just as is. He's been stiffed in the past few years with obviously being traded out of Toronto and stuff. But 25 mil at the Dallas Mavericks is my pick.
I guess. Sorry, just quickly on that. I guess my question mark is if I'm DeMar DeRozan and I say, look, I'm going to go to the Mavericks and pair up with Luka, and even if Porzingis is still there, am I enough to take them to a championship or at least an NBA Finals? I don't know. Are they? I don't think they are.
I seriously think Luka, you can try and go for the championship with Luka right now. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm going to be annoying with how much I love Luka when LeBron retires. I'm going to be quite annoying after this. I think you can go for it with him now. So,
all right, fair enough. It's a good segue talking about DeMar DeRozan because we'll go into his team or his former teammate, I should say, in Kyle Lowry. And guess what? I'm going to give him the same. I'm going to give him $25 million. Overs or unders?
I wrote 2 year 50 here, so if you do this mathematics,
do the maths. That's it. Yep. Yeah. Well, you say 2 year 50. I'd be willing to give 3 years 75. Now I know he's on the age. I mean, if you're giving Chris Paul 3 year 30, Chris Paul's better, but he's also I think a year or two older. So I'd be willing if Kyle Lowry, came to me and said I want 75 over 3. I'm probably willing to do that. But my question to you is the Miami Heat seem to be very interested. Are you willing to, you're a big Heat fan, are you willing to give Kyle Lowry 50 over 2 or 75 over 3 to get him next to Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo?
I am, and I think Kyle Lowry, maybe I'm pretty asking you a question by doing this, but are you hoping that he does what Chris Paul did to a team, but obviously not as crazy as Chris Paul did, but just a tier under that, have that sort of effect on a team? Is that what you're...
Yeah, no, I really like Kyle Lowry. I think he's a really good player. I think he can have a similar impact to Chris Paul, and there's teams out there that he could really elevate. The Heat's one of them. I think the best fit, and it was rumoured at the trade deadline, is potentially the 76ers. It would mean that they'd have to get rid of Simmons to obviously make the salaries work and whatnot. But, I mean, you chuck Lowry in there as a more traditional point guard, has the ability to facilitate, but can also play off the ball, a pretty good three-point shooter. A pretty reasonable defender with his stocky build. So I think he'd be great at the 76ers. I think he'd be good at the Heat. The other team that has seemingly made room for him after trading out Eric Bledsoe and Steven Adams is the Pelicans. I think he'd be a good fit at the Pelicans. I'm just not sure why Kyle Lowry would go to a team that's 11th, 12th seed in the Western Conference. The Pelicans might offer him a contract. I'm just probably not taking it if I'm Kyle Lowry, unless it's significantly more than what everyone else is offering.
I think why I reckon that New Orleans are trying to do that is because they saw the mold that Chris Paul followed there. If they think that, we've got these two young stars, and maybe if we get a veteran guy, he still shoots 40% from 3, 17 and 7 he averages. Great, obviously respected and great leader. So I think that's where the hype is. But Kyle Lowry, do you reckon there's a chance he stays at Toronto at all for that sort of money?
Well, I feel like everyone speaks about him as if he's just a guarantee to leave. He's a guarantee to leave.
Yeah.
Well, the fact they drafted Scotty Barnes and not Jalen Suggs, maybe that makes a difference. I don't know if surely they wouldn't have done that with the idea of, hey, we want to re-sign Kyle and he's actually given us some kind of point, I guess, that he will re-sign with us. Yeah, I don't think that would be the case, but I don't know. I just think if he wants to win a championship, then he probably needs to leave Toronto, and he's not going to, and that's why he's not going to sign with the Pelicans. He's more likely to sign with the Heat maybe, and the 76ers if Simmons was off the books and he was actually available in a trade.
Because the first thing I thought when they didn't draft Jalen Suggs, actually they're going to re-sign Kyle Lowry as a leader for the young players in their rebuild. So I don't know. I think, but he'll get that money wherever he wants to go. I think the next person I had, Lonzo Ball, is a player that I am really, really growing on. Watching Drew Holiday throughout those NBA finals, throughout those playoffs, full stop. I thought when Lonzo Ball is in the right system and the right coach, I think it can have that sort of effect on a basketball game. and he's got that top shelf type of shooting. I am so high on Lonzo Ball. And I think he's just been stiffed with injuries, first and foremost throughout his Lakers campaign, and the pressure on him. Thank you, LeVar. And then, obviously, the New Orleans, I don't think they knew how to use him.
What's the number?
I'll put $20 million. I've gone 4-year, $80 million.
Yeah.
Over, under, just right. Am I going crazy?
No, I think we're going well here. I don't know. If you give him 4-year 80, I feel like it could turn into a really bad contract or a really good contract. Like, it might not be an in-between kind of thing. I don't know. Some team will give him that. That is going to happen. I guess the question mark is he's a restricted free agent, so are the Pelicans willing to give him that kind of contract in order to keep him? Yeah. Did you have a team in mind that you'd like him to go to and who has, I guess, that salary cap flexibility to be able to bring him in?
The Chicago Bulls I've seen a lot of ties to.
Yeah.
And new one that I was just reading up on things, Boston Celtics, who don't have a point guard, obviously need to have they need a point guard for the future direction. They've got Jason Tatum, so they need to make a decision. And I think him slotting in there next to Jaylen Brown, imagine that backcourt with him and Jaylen Brown defensively, and then Jason Tatum as their star, figure out that. But
They've also got Josh Richardson recently in a trade as well,
which quite recently. Whether they just call this me loving the Ball Brothers family, I would love to see him go to the Charlotte Hornets to play in the backcourt with his brother. They have way too many guards in their backcourt, so I think they need to make a decision.
What are you going to do? You're going to have Lonzo, you're going to have LaMelo, you're going to have James Bouknight, you're going to have Rozier, and you're going to have Devontae Graham. You can make a starting five out of that. Lonzo might be their centre.
Start LaMelo as a centre, but obviously, as you said, restricted free agent, so maybe some sort of sign and trade in there. But I think any of those teams actually, Boston to go with Zach LaVine there, and
Boston
maybe,
and Zach LaVine. Bulls and Zach LaVine.
Let me try that again. Bulls and Zach LaVine, and then Boston with Jaylen Brown. Let's try that. So but I think Lonzo Ball will get that money wherever he decides.
I like those fits you say as well, because I love him next to LaVine as a defensive style guard, because that's just not what the Bulls have. I mean, they have Kobe White, who's offensive-minded, LaVine, who's offensive-minded. I think he just fits really well. And the thing with Lonzo Ball is he's still got that playmaking, those playmaking traits and whatnot that he was known for, coming out of high school and college. But with the Pelicans, with Zion handling the ball a bit more, with Brandon Ingram, he almost turned into a 3-and-D type.
He did.
Where he could sit off the ball and just spot up in the corner on the wing and shoot threes at a pretty high clip. I've been really impressed with the way he's actually turned his shot around from a mechanics point of view, and obviously from the percentage point of view. Absolutely fantastic. It's probably one of the more unheralded stories, I think, Lonzo Ball and that jump shot. So he almost just turned into a 3-and-D guy. 6'6" with that size and that length is a really good perimeter defender. Yeah, some team will give him that, and I like your picks there with the Bulls, as I just spoke about, and also the Celtics, who are in need of a point guard.
Lonzo Ball's has been stiffed, as I said, with injuries and the pressure on him, but he really has turned everything around. And I think he's one, as I said, coach or system or team away from being who we thought he originally was. I mean, and he's a natural shooter. Back in college, even with his weird jump shot, he shot 40% without, and he could hit them. So Lonzo Ball, I think, is one to watch.
Not bad. All right, we'll take a quick break and we'll be back with the rest of these free agents next. Alrighty, next up on my list is Spencer Dinwiddie. Obviously missed all last season with that ACL injury. Becomes a free agent though. 28 years of age. He's kind of like Lonzo to me. I've given him 20 mil and probably a 3-4 year contract, so 60-80 mil kind of thing. What are your thoughts on that?
We need to have a hot take soon, because I've got exactly 20 million as well on this unrestricted 28-year-old.
Maybe we should just become GMs. Maybe let's both put our hands up right now and say, hey, we're available. We know the values of our players.
Naturally, the next step after a podcast, I reckon, straight into GM.
I did have Spencer Dinwiddie, though, been linked to the Wizards, and I really like that fit next to Bradley Beal as a guy who can make for you, but can also play off the ball and hit threes, and a guy that the Wizards aren't going to necessarily be contending as such. I know they've got rid of Russ, but I think with Kuzma and with Harrell and with KCP there, they're actually they're not deep in terms of high-end talent, but they've got some guys there on that roster. And in that Eastern Conference, I don't see why they can't be a top 8 seed, really, in the Eastern Conference next season, especially if you were to get Spencer Dinwiddie next to Bradley Beal. You got those guys from the Lakers I just spoke about. You got your Rui Hachimura. You got your Denny Avdia. You got your Thomas Bryant coming back from injury.
True.
They've got some players. Now Bradley Beal's now the only kind of star in that team, but they've got some guys. And I think Spencer Dinwiddie is a great option all around because for his purposes, he can go into a team and be a starting point guard right there, no worries, rather than having to be a backup. And he can go to a team that can contribute. Well, he can contribute and potentially lead them to the playoffs, but also has some future with Thomas Bryant, Denny Avdia, and Rui Hachimura. So, yeah, for me, all parties, if they can come to an agreement, I think it works out pretty well.
I think that's a fantastic call. And you say that Bradley Beal's the only star, but I mean, Spencer's in his prime there. Bradley Beal is in his prime, and those players, KCP is a serviceable sort of, he can be a starter in some teams. So I didn't even think about the Wizards. That's actually a great call. John Collins is who my number 7 is, and I'm very curious to see the figure you put on John Collins. So the restricted free agent, only 23 years old, started becoming a more complete player, I think, rather than just a sort of tunnel vision guy. Him and Trae Young have a very just awesome pick and roll game, the lobs and everything. Yeah, I've seen figures, researching this, I saw some figures around 4 or 5 years, 125 mil, and I didn't like that at all. I don't see what John Collins does exceptionally well.
So, at the start, 5 year 125, so 25 a season is what we're saying?
That's not what I think. That is massive overs. And John Collins, I'm very curious to see what you think about. So John Collins, he's one of the worst defensive guys at his position. He just can't be on the perimeter, and he's too skinny to be inside. And I think the guy they drafted, Jalen Johnson, he's a number 20 pick, he's a Duke forward, 6'9", 220, sort of a little bit of a playmaking ability, a little bit of a handle, obviously just needs time, experience and stuff. I could see him just turning it to John Collins as well. And he's on a rookie contract. Yeah. And I think people like John Collins struggle. If they don't have Trae Young, an elite playmaker, on their squad, they struggle elsewhere. And so the figure I've given him is the contract. And Kyle Kuzma was the guy I was thinking of. I think he struggled once Lonzo Ball left. Kyle Kuzma got a 3-year, $40 million contract.
You think that's around his value? You think
that's what John Collins? I think if he asks for more than that, I'll say
really.
I'll catch you later.
So you're saying 15 mil might be overs for John Collins.
I don't see what does he do exceptionally well?
Well, he's very athletic. He's very athletic, and as you say, with that Trae Young combination, he can catch lobs. He can get put back dunks and whatever else. I'm kind of with you. He doesn't do anything special, I guess, in terms of he's not a lead at any one thing. So I probably agree with you there. But he can step out and shoot the 3 ball. I mean, as you say, he's not a great defender. He's not taking guys off the dribble as such. Yeah, when you put it that way, you kind of make some sense, but I'm not going as hard as you. I'll say I think he's around, I would pay him 20 mil, but I completely understand. And again, we said this before we started the free agency segment here, that I would give him 20 mil, but I know some team will give him 25 and probably give him 4 or 5 years. Like some team will do that. And then it's up to Atlanta to say, all right, are we going to match that and keep this guy, or are we going to let him walk?
I think I'm thinking also how the Atlanta Hawks are structured. They've got their star in Trae Young. Clint Capella has a defensive player of the year type years sometimes. DeAndre Hunter's a great 3-and-D, and I think they need to figure out that front court. They need a star in that front court that scores or does something exceptionally well. And I think John Collins doesn't do that. But as I said, this is just what I think, and that's what you think. So, who knows?
All right, let's jump into another restricted free agent, Jarrett Allen of the Cleveland Cavaliers. I had him getting around 18. In fact, I'd probably maybe push that down to 16, to be honest. I just don't like paying guys who are there just to defend and rebound and have no offensive game apart from, being lob threats and maybe put back dunks kind of thing. And I like Jared Allen, but I just don't like paying those kind of guys. It's why I didn't, I think Andre Drummond was severely overpaid by the Pistons for years there. I just don't particularly like it, and I think the Cavs will re-sign him, and I think he can form a pretty good front court with Evan Mobley. The Raptors are probably another team that I've heard are involved, which I like their fit, given they don't have a whole heap of centres on that roster. I guess Chris Boucher, Aaron Baines, so they might put some pressure on the Cavs and give Jared Allen a pretty generous contract, which Cleveland will have to think about whether or not they try and match that and re-sign him.
See, I've gone closer to 20 million for Jared Allen and those guys. I mean, only 23 years of age, and I'm thinking of Cleveland. Now that you've mentioned that, Cleveland, Evan Mobley's good enough and skilled enough to play the 4 positions. So I think that's quite an incredible front court you've got for years to come. And I know what you mean by those rim running bigs who kind of only do certain things, but I think Jared Allen's actually on the higher end of those rim running bigs. If you don't have an Embiid or Jokic, those superstar bigs, I think that's the next thing you want.
Yeah.
And I think it's on the higher end of those sort of rim running bigs. So I think a 23-year-old at 20 million.
I just find it fascinating that you're willing to pay Jared Allen a little bit more. I was going to say significantly more. It's not significant, but it's maybe $4 or $5 million a season more than John Collins. It's interesting to me.
John Collins. I mean, Jared Allen can defend the rim. I know that's something he can do exceptionally well.
Yeah.
And I don't know what John Collins.
You're reiterating that John Collins doesn't do anything at an elite level.
He does a little bit of everything, but he's not the guy I'd be paying a little bit extra for.
So you think the Cavs will re-sign him? If you're the Cavs, what point do you go up to before you say, "Nah, I'm not matching that, and I'm letting him walk"?
4-year 80 was what I wrote down here for the thing.
So
anything over
that, you're questioning it. And you're
I'd be a little nervous. Right? I think you can find. I'm good. Oh, man, I guess I've got Evan Mobley then as my future centre.
Yeah, that's true. That is very true.
I'm all right. Mike Conley is the number 9 guy on here, unrestricted free agent, 34 years of age, and the number I've put on him is a 3-year, $60 million contract. First reaction
to that
again,
good GM work. I think that's probably about right. Anything more than that, I'd be very skeptical, because I think he's already begun, or he has begun, a downward trajectory. I think after his days in Memphis, he just hasn't been the same player in Utah. I don't think he's had some injury issues, so I'd be very scared to pay him any more than 20. That's probably my limit. 3-year contract takes him to 37 years of age. Yeah, I think they've got to pay it, just because, I mean, who else are they going to pay around that range, I guess, unless they just swap point guards and want to get, Alonzo type in kind of thing to go with that young brigade of Donovan Mitchell. I don't know. I think they've probably got to pay it and just see what they can do, but I don't know, are Utah going anywhere kind of thing, or are they just going to be a really good regular season team and then just get bounced in the second round of the playoffs?
I would go again, just a short, but figure out the wing situation. Go again, I mean Utah. Go again for the wing situation, because Mitchell and Conley were in and out of the lineup, and they were still the number 1 seed in the NBA. Actually, they had a fantastic regular season, and they've got their all-star backcourt. Even though Mike Conley's a one-time all-star, he's also all-star. So I think they figure out the wing situation. I think run it back again. I think you go for it this year. 3 years, 60.
Okay. We'll see what, I guess, Gobert does in the playoffs next year. It's all about matchups, I guess, for Gobert particularly, but that Utah Jazz team. But I think they'll be a very good regular season team again. They've got enough depth and talent to do that, and a great home court advantage there in Utah. Last one to finish off our top 10, Dennis Schroeder. You might hear from the tone in my voice, I'm off this guy. I really am. Some team's gonna pay him $18 million. I think. I think he, from what I've read, he wants 25. That is freaking ludicrous. If Dennis Schroeder wants $25 million plus dollars, I think I should get a veteran minimum. Honestly, I'll pay him 18 again. I think some team will pay him more. And what have I written down here for teams that may want him? any place that'll have him and pay him is what I just don't.
Personal.
I just can't think of a team that he fits. I mean, again, so your man's John Collins that you really don't like. I just don't like Dennis Schroeder. What does he actually do well at like an elite level? He was a very good sixth man for OKC. I get that. I just think that's what he is. He's a sixth man, and you're not paying a sixth man $25 million a season. You're paying him max 18. I think he's a really good sixth man. That's all I think he is. He's not an elite three-point shooter. He's not an elite three-point shooter. He's not an elite defender. In fact, he's a below-average defender. He's an okay playmaker. He can get to the rim okay, but he's not an explosive athlete. I mean, what does he actually do that's any more than a sixth man?
I reckon he does. He's not an NBA starter, but I think he's on the higher end of the sixth man.
I agree, but you're not paying a sixth man regardless of what end they're at $25 million, which is what he wants.
I've wrote down 15 million.
Okay, so you're actually being less than me, which is good. Maybe my $18 million was more about what the max he should get, not necessarily like what I think he should get. I'm probably with you, 15 mil, but by the sounds of it, he almost wants double that, which is nuts.
I wonder these blokes when he asks 25 million. Well, what is he like? How do you back that up? He doesn't have a resume of.
He has a resume of I was one of the best six man in the league, and teams are just going to be like, exactly a sixth man. Six man don't get $25 million, Dennis. Come on, mate.
Dennis got him his first name. Well, he's in trouble with that thing. I wrote down the Knicks as the team. 15 million.
The Knicks are the kind of team before last season that will definitely overpay for him. I actually have some faith in the Knicks that they've kind of corrected themselves and that they won't do something that silly to give a guy like that $25 million.
Nah, 15
Give me
million.
Frank Ntilikina on $2 million.
Well,
No, I'm joking about that. Dennis is far above old Frank the Tank. But, yeah, come on, Dennis. You know, if he gets 25, I'm going to laugh at the team that does. I really am. I'm just glad it can't be the Warriors because we don't have the salary cap room for it. That's my only... I mean, if we did a sign and trade for him for Kelly Oubre, I wouldn't hate it. But, yeah, anyway, $25 million. Come on, Dennis.
He's delusion personified.
Some team will probably give it to him. That's the funny thing. Like some team actually will. I don't know.
Who knows with Dennis? The next lot of free agents are probably not the biggest names this offseason, but I think the teams have a decision to make with a lot of them. The first one I had on the board is Tim Hardaway Jr., unrestricted free agent, 29 years of age. Had hit some big shots in those down the playoffs, 39% from three, and he's actually you can actually clear the ball, court, and he can actually go get a bucket for you.
Yeah,
I wrote 3-year, $50 million.
Yeah, that's about right.
The Dallas Mavericks.
I had about 16 mil, so that's about right.
That's about right. Yeah, in his prime as well, 29 years of age in his prime.
Yeah, you think he'd only get better.
Natural shooter, I think Luka loves playing with him. He looked like he's definitely did better than Porzingis in the thing. So yeah.
Well, he was their second best player, really, come playoff time, literally behind, next to Luka. So, do you think it's a formality that he re-signs with the Mavericks, or did you have another team in mind that he may go to? From my point of view, I just genuinely think a guy like that who can come in, can shoot your threes, but can also be a bit of a shot creator kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I think he kind of fits anywhere. Really, I think he's the kind of guy that you can have as your 6th, 7th man at any team. I like him as a player. I don't know. Yeah.
I didn't go back to the Mavericks, but he will get that money regardless of where he goes. Patty Mills.
Yeah, we wanted to chuck him in there.
We have to, I reckon. His stock will skyrocket because of these Olympics. I saw a tweet today.
Will they?
Yeah. Yeah,
5 year max, you reckon?
No,
he's playing like that. He's playing like it.
He actually looks like Damian Lillard at the Olympics. He shoots from so far out. I guess the Spurs have their systems and they don't want people taking these crazy shots. But I had a 2-year 16. I reckon he could sign somewhere, and someone like the Lakers, I reckon, will gun for him because they need the floor spacing. But I think Patty Mills will get that sort of money. I think his shooting ability.
Yeah, I mean, the Lakers have been rumored because in the last couple of days since the Westbrook trade, given they need the shooting. I don't know if you watched the game last night. He was just it's amazing how differently he plays at the Boomers. They said, I think, after about a dozen minutes of game time that he was like 2 of 9 from the floor. He was like 1 of 6 from deep or something. And like, even when he misses, he's just like throwing them up as if he's Damian Lillard kind of thing, as if he's Steph Curry and he's not worrying about the shot before kind of thing. It's quite incredible when he plays in the green and gold. I just wonder if he's another player like his teammate in DeMar DeRozan, whether he might just take a bit less to go to a championship contender. He's 33 years of age now. He's a role player in the NBA at the end of the day. I don't know if he's a guy that you can get. I mean, from a Warriors point of view, I'd love to get him at the kind of the mid-level exception, $5-6 million. He could definitely get more than that, but I'm just wondering if he would be willing to take that amount of money to go to a contender like the Lakers. Dare I say Warriors? Yes, I'll put us in championship contention. About 5th favourite, I think, with bookies. So I'm putting that out there. Yeah, I'm just wondering if he might do that.
I reckon it's the Lakers for that mid-level exception. I think it is about $6 million. So I think the allure there.
Next one up on the list, one close to your heart, Duncan Robinson. Oh, this one's strange to me because he does one thing and one thing only, and literally doesn't do anything else. He doesn't play any defense. He's not a shot creator off the dribble as such. He's not a playmaker or anything. Like, he doesn't do anything but shoot the ball, but he does shoot the ball at a very good clip, and I just wonder how much a team is going to pay for that.
Well, we had Bertans and Joe Harris get a big bag last year, $80 million though. And Joe Harris, obviously, he shouldn't be a number 2 option on the team, but he was towards the end of playoffs. And Bertans,
well, this is
that meme
this is
of
the thing.
0-0.
Yeah. This is the thing though. Have teams like learnt from that and just said, nah, Joe Harris, good player, not worth $20 million. Bertans definitely not worth $20 million. Have teams learnt from that and said, okay, one-dimensional guys and all they do is shoot the ball, are they really worth that amount of money? So I had on here 15 mil. I think a 3-year 45 or something.
I roll the dice and go back to that $80 million that he signed. I'd sign him to a 4-year 80.
Really?
He's what?
Oh.
Joe Harris. That's why I said when he's not the number 2 option. When the Nets were firing during the regular season and he was a 4th option on the field, he could not miss. He has such a beautiful looking jump shot, first of all, but he could not miss. And I reckon Miami, if we can get a point guard that can take the pressure off him, because Dragic was falling apart, Chris Dunn's not really a threat anywhere. So Duncan Robinson at times is the number 2 option, and you don't want that. He's a deadly long-range shooter. And he's got the sort of J.J. Redick, Klay Thompson, I'll be nervous saying that name, but that sort of pinned down, just keeps constantly running. He's an elite shooter. But if we can get a point guard that can take the pressure of him and keep Duncan Robinson as the 4th best option on the team, he will not miss these threes. So I think we have to go for broke right now. We have to use Butler's prime. I will pay that 4-year 80.
My only question mark is that you're saying he's a 4th option, but your top 3 of Butler, let's say you got Lowry, for example. Let's say you had Lowry, Butler, Adebayo, and then Duncan Robinson. Lowry, Butler, and Adebayo is nothing compared to Harden, Kyrie, KD. It's just not. So, I mean, you think of the perimeter threats that Kyrie and KD and Harden are, and then how much that got Joe Harris open during the regular season last year. That's not Duncan Robinson, because Butler's not a perimeter threat. Adebayo's not a perimeter threat. If you got Lowry, then yeah, he's one. But that's my, I guess, question mark on what you've just said is, cool, he's a 4th option, but he's the 4th option compared to those 3 guys, not a 4th option as Joe Harris was compared to a Kyrie, James Harden, KD. So that's my question mark. I wouldn't be giving him that. I'm sorry. I'm trying to learn from the Bertans and I guess Joe Harris, because we saw Joe Harris when there was Harden was dogged by a hamstring and there was no Kyrie. He fell apart in the playoffs. A one-dimensional guy like that. I'm sorry, you're not giving him 20. If he could defend, then yes, most certainly, and that is the difference at the end of the day between a Klay Thompson and a Duncan Robinson. One, I think Klay's got a bit more on the offensive end than just catch and shoot, although that's his primary role. But Klay Thompson, I mean, he's coming off 2 years injuries, but before that was an elite perimeter defender in the NBA. That's why he got a max contract. And to me, Duncan Robinson, he just shoots the ball. That's it. But I mean, good luck to him. He'll probably get 20, but I just wouldn't do it.
Yeah, we need if we've got Butler in the mid range and Bam down low, we need that sort of spacing. So
So that's you need the shooting. So maybe you do it, but yeah, I'd start my negotiations at a lot lower than $20 million. That's for sure.
There's another guy who'll get it regardless. Kelly Oubre Jr. was the next name. Kelly Oubre Jr. over the Golden State Warriors. You, as the Golden State, let's say you're the what's your guy's name?
Bob
again?
Myers.
Bob Myers.
That's him.
How do you feel about Kelly Oubre Jr. at this stage?
Very badly, but I need his salary cap spot. So for those that don't know, Kelly Oubre Jr., the Warriors have bird rights. So basically what they can do is they're already well over the salary cap, but they can actually pay whatever they want to Kelly Oubre Jr. and keep him if they wish. I don't want him particularly. I mean, if he stays, cool, I guess. Like, I don't hate it. I think, though, that we saw this past season, he's a reasonable player, but he's not a winner. He's not a winner, and there's no doubts about it that when he went out of the team with that wrist injury and the Warriors were literally playing 8 blokes, they went on a massive winning streak. They won like 16 of their last 20 games and, should have made the playoffs, really. And that was without Kelly Oubre. Like, he's just a ball stopper. He doesn't really know the spots that he needs to be in on offense. He kind of got in steps away so many times last season. I mean, the dude had a 40-point game against Dallas last season. He can put the ball in the bucket with the best of them. His shooting wasn't great. Shot 32% from 3 last season, but I think he can get that back up to kind of 35. Yeah, he kind of looks like a good defender because he puts in a lot of effort, but he's not a great defender statistically. So, yeah, I had him probably around the same as that Duncan Robinson mark, around $15 million. He's kind of a jack of all trades, but he doesn't do anything at elite level. Yeah, I have him about 15, but I think a team will give him 20. He's still young. Okay. I guess he can improve, but I just don't like him. The best thing for the Warriors is if they can try and do a sign and trade for him and they keep that salary cap option and flexibility, I guess.
So your range is 15-20?
Yeah, look. If the Warriors, I'm happy for the Warriors to re-sign him, like, to be totally honest, because it means they keep that salary cap spot open because they can't go and re-sign anyone on that kind of money if he leaves. So I'd be happy for him to re-sign him basically solely on that. But if he was on the open market, if I'm another team, I wouldn't be paying him any more than 15, 16 kind of thing, maybe 3 year 50, maybe max kind of thing. He's just not a winner. The Suns got rid of him, and the Suns went to the NBA Finals. He was at the Warriors. The Warriors stunk. He was out with an injury, and the Warriors go on a 16-4 run. Like,
See, that's the sole reason I've gone. I think that's massive overs. I've gone
really?
a 3-year 30. I've gone a 3-year $30 million.
Ooh,
10 mil.
That is cheap.
Because I don't see what he does exceptionally. Obviously, we've talked about these 6'8" wings, these sort of do-it-all forwards. On the higher end of these forwards, you've got the Iguodalas of the world, Harrison Barnes during your championship run. Yeah. You've got Jay Crowder. We saw his value during the playoffs. But then there's the lower end, which is like the OG of the world, and Miles Bridges and stuff, who don't do...
It's Arshon OG and Anunoby, I don't mind him.
Okay, maybe. But they're incredibly athletically gifted as well. But I think a lot has to go right for them to excel. And I don't. His IQ is actually quite low.
It is, and that's to be a part of the Warriors. You kind of got to have a high basketball IQ, and that's why, unfortunately, Wiseman doesn't have it at this point, and Oubre doesn't have it. And last season, those two guys were out with injury, and the Warriors just went on a massive run with literally an 8-man rotation. But those 8 guys just knew what they were doing out there, and that's why they won games of basketball. The other thing with Oubre is it's not just the money aspect, but it's also, is he a starter or not? Because he thinks he's a starter. The Warriors, if they re-sign him, they're going to have to... Their push to Oubre is, we can sign you whatever money you want, but you're flat out. Maybe apart from the first 20 games of the season when, first 10, 20, if Clay's still out, you can be a starter. But from there, you're the 6th man at best. I actually think Jordan Poole's probably going to be better than him, so maybe he's a 7th man. I don't know. Like, is he starting caliber? I think he's starting caliber on a poor team that's not a playoff team, maybe.
Everything you just said is why I've gone so low, mate. And he's not a starter at this stage. He's only 25, true, and who knows? Maybe he needs to be in the right system and right everything. But yeah, so far I wouldn't go over 10. Maybe I'm just a cheap bloke, but yeah, 3 year 30. I'd sign him too.
I think that's been a bit cheap because I think he's worth. I mean, his season at Phoenix was actually pretty good. Season before last, he averaged like 18 points a game and shot like high 30s from three. So his season there was pretty good, but again, it wasn't on a winning team. So I just have question marks on his value to a team that wants to actually try and compete for a championship. Last one though, before we finish off the episode, a guy that we nearly forgot about, and I feel like a lot of people just forgot about him because the amount of basketball he's played in the last couple of years is very, very little. He's still a part of your Miami Heat after the trade at the just before the trade deadline, I think. Victor Oladipo. What are you paying him? I had here, I don't know. For potential, I think you still got to give him 20, maybe 3 years, 60. That's my thought. I don't know. What did you have? As a Heat fan, do you want to re-sign on him?
I do, but for a little less than that, I'm just coming up as a cheap bloke. I've gone a 1 year, 15 mil prove yourself year.
Oh, see, I don't mind it. I don't mind it because from his point of view, if he comes out and kills it for a year, then all of a sudden some team might not just give him 20, they might give him 25. So I don't hate it, but from his perspective, I'd probably still want just a 1 year 20 kind of thing.
1 year.
Yeah.
It'd be a previous, because he actually, when he comes to the negotiation table, he's got the 2-time All-Star, he's made All-NBA teammate, there's a third team, led the league in steals, he's been all defensive guard, so he's got that to bring it, but then what you just said, he's missed a lot of basketball. So yeah, if I'm the Miami Heat, I say, listen mate, I've got all these injuries that I've got to take consideration. I'll give you this 15 mil as a one-time thing, prove yourself, and exactly what you just said, if he has a breakout year, that's amazing. We could probably sign him longer than that. But I mean, he's 29 years old. He's in his prime. So I think it's great for both parties that way. And 15 mil.
Well, it's just again at the end of the day, it's just up to what other teams are going to offer him, and how much does he want to bet on himself? Does he take 1 year 15 and think, all right, I'm going to have a really good season, and then options are going to open up to me, and some team's going to offer me 4 year 100 mil at the end of next season? Or does he just say, look, I'll just take 3 year 60 at some bum team and just kind of coast along kind of thing? So, yeah, I don't know. Really interesting one, though. But, yeah, I don't mind the idea of just that 1 year prove yourself contract, as you say.
Prove yourself sort of thing. Yeah, and I'm very happy to do it at Miami, I think. In fact, I'd actually like to see him get back to obviously what he was in 2018, but also as a starting point guard. Actually, next to Duncan Robinson and then Jimmy Butler, and go from there.
Oh, so would you rather that, or would you rather Kyle Lowry? If you had the option.
Kyle Lowry, actually. Kyle Lowry.
That was quick. Well, that's I guess the options that Miami have got to weigh up. I actually think it's unlikely that Oladipo returns purely for that reason, that they can just get rid of him and open up some salary to try and get a Lowry or another high quality point guard that you know is going to play at a certain level, that you know is going to actually play games and get out on the floor for you. So I think that's probably the most likely scenario for the Miami Heat. But that will probably end us up, unless you had any other names that you want to throw out there. We've mentioned 15, so it's not too bad, I don't think.
No, it's a pretty good list there. And who knows, the people that are going to be traded, the way the NBA is, I think the next 36 hours will be refreshing every Woj bomb there is out there.
Get Woj, get Shams on tweet alerts or whatever, because it is going to go absolutely nuts. Probably the most insane period, I think, of the NBA season, the first 24 to 48 hours of free agency. Absolutely incredible. To be fair, I don't think this free agency class is that great when we're talking about the likes of Kawhi and, Kawhi if he opts out, I guess, and Chris Paul being the headlines. I don't think it's a great free agency class, but nevertheless, there are going to be moves that will be made that will potentially determine next year's championship.
That's the nature of the NBA we're in, mate. I wasn't expecting Russell Westbrook to be a Laker this time last week, and now he is.
He is, that's for sure.
Exciting, a week ahead of.
Alrighty, guys. Thank you very much for listening to another episode of the Star and Scrub NBA podcast. Subscribe on Spotify and iTunes, and have a great week ahead. Cheers, guys.